Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen, and I'm so happy to be here to talk about eating well for the holidays. And as Lorraine said, please feel free to chime in with questions or comments, and let's make this interactive. So, delicious food is all around us during the holidays. As we know, we've made it through Halloween and Thanksgiving, and we've got a few more coming up. Um, how do we find the balance of enjoying all your family's favorites, the traditions, while still keeping your health goals in mind? Today we're going to talk about how to find that balance, how to sort of stay on track with your health goals and prioritize what's on your plate during the holidays while still enjoying all the good things that the season has to offer. And of course, this is not medical advice. Always talk to your doctor before starting any diet or exercise plan. So today we're going to talk about some common barriers during the holidays. Why are the holidays challenging for us to stay on track? Well, obviously there's temptation everywhere, right? But we'll talk about some strategies to sort of overcome those barriers, what to do before, during, and after your holiday gatherings. And we'll talk about some recipe and food swaps, and really our take-home message today is going to be to keep it real. Holidays are not the time to deprive yourself. Stay sensible, not deprived, enjoy your favorites, but try not to go too crazy with it. And we'll talk about some strategies to make that happen. So maybe less so now in the days of COVID, but things are starting to get a little bit back to normal. There's lots of functions and gatherings during the holidays, right? Maybe it's getting together with your family or your friends or work activities, but there seems to be lots of opportunities for treats, sweets, high calorie foods, things that we might not be normally encountering as often. There might also just be less time to do your regular exercise routine or cook at home because you're more busy with, just all the busy things that life throws at us. But this is just a really busy time of year, whether you're attending, functions and gatherings or shopping or whatever it is that's keeping us super busy this time of year. You also might be receiving lots of baked goods and different things as gifts, and you might kind of feel obligated to eat them. Or maybe the break room or your home is just filling up with goodies and sweets and treats and all sorts of stuff this time of year, and maybe you feel like, you don't want it to go to waste, or heck, it's just delicious and you want to eat it, and hey, that's okay. But we'll talk about some strategies to do so in balance and moderation. But bottom line is there's a lot of delicious stuff floating around this time of year. And in addition to that, we may be moving around less. I mean, it's just kind of natural this time of year. We're super busy. You might not have as much time for, hitting the gym or doing your workouts. The weather is obviously getting yucky, colder, the less daylight. Lorraine and I were just talking about how it's so dark so early, and that's a bummer, right? Especially if that was maybe your workout time. I know I used to love to go for a walk after work in the evening or take my daughter to the playground. But this less daylight, really shaves a lot of hours off of our day, and that's just fewer opportunities to be active, to get exercise. And also these like cold, shorter days can kind of induce some cravings for sort of comfort foods, things that are going to help us feel warmer and happier. And often that finds its way in the form of, starchy or sweet foods, maybe things we used to eat a lot as kids, but that definitely can happen this time of year. And the kind of the trouble with those foods can be that like they can often lead to cravings for more foods like that. So not to say avoid them completely, but of course, using our best judgment when it comes to those things. As with any nutrition advice, it's always good to just get back to the basics, right? And remember, what we're going for is mostly plants, right? We are meant to be eating plants. That's what our bodies are great at digesting. It has, these are foods that are nutrient dense and have vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein, things that we need, our bodies need to thrive. and to function properly and for us to feel good, be in good moods. So many things are affected by what we eat. And so, the basics of what you're eating every day can definitely help you have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to the holidays, when you need some flexibility to splurge a little bit and to enjoy, some of your favorite treats that don't come around every day. So using my plate is always a good guide. Half your plate being fruits and vegetables, especially veggies, and especially those non-starchy vegetables, which are things like your leafy greens and your broccoli and your cauliflower and all that good stuff that you might pile on top of a salad. A quarter of your plate should be protein. And that might be in the form of lean meats like chicken, turkey, leaner cuts of red meat. It might be fish, eggs, nuts, lentils, seeds. I already said that. But lots of ways to get protein from both animal and non-animal sources. And then a quarter of your plate should be the starchy carbs, right? This is often what can take over the plate if we're not too careful. Ideally, these are going to be the whole grains, things that have a lot of fiber and vitamins in them, like brown rice, oatmeal, quinoa, whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, things of this nature. And remember, with nutrition, it's always a good idea to come back to our basics of moderation, variety, and balance. Moderation meaning, be reasonable with your portion sizes. Try not to go too overboard or let yourself get too hungry or too full. Variety meaning eat a little bit of everything. I mean, this plate is a good example because you can see how many different things are on here. Obviously, we're not going to eat like all these foods at one meal, but if you're eating a lot of different foods over the course of the weeks and the months, that's going to ensure that you're not missing out on anything. It'll make sure you're covering all your bases with all the different vitamins and minerals and things that our bodies need. And it keeps it interesting, right? You don't want to get bored eating the same thing over and over again. And then finally, balance means having, on the smaller scale, meals that are balanced, meaning they have something from every food group, like this plate shows, but also in the broader sense, meaning that you're kind of balancing your meals over the days and weeks. So if you kind of overdo it at one meal, maybe you're going to sort of balance it out by eating a little lighter at the other meals surrounding it. So let's talk about what to do before a holiday gathering. So you don't want to go in too hungry because that can be dangerous, right? I think we've all been there when you get so hungry that it starts to affect your mood. You might call it hangry, but especially if you're, seeing your family, you want to go in there in a good mood, right? And if we're letting ourselves get too hungry, you might not be making the best food decisions. All of a sudden, those appetizers or whatever the first thing you see might look really good, and oops, you just ate like a ton of that you didn't really intend to. Or maybe you didn't really save room for the thing that you really want to save room for, which is, grandma's amazing stuffing or, auntie's awesome pumpkin pie or whatever your favorite is. So going in with, having eaten some balanced meals throughout the day, have a good breakfast. Here's a pretty good visual example here, eggs, whole grain toast, avocado, spinach, something like that would be a really nice balanced meal. Or maybe you do a nice veggie scramble, with some chopped up veggies and some eggs. Or maybe you're just going a little lighter, you don't want to fill up too much, but you want to make sure you get some nutrition and you just have some yogurt and some fruit, or maybe some peanut butter toast or something like that. Or maybe a nice bowl of oatmeal. Don't feel the need to like save up your appetite because sometimes that can backfire and you end up a little too hungry. Um, a good idea before the meal or before the gathering, whether this is getting together on the actual holiday with your family or this is like a work gathering or a friend's giving or whatever the function is, maybe get some activity that day. So, do your usual workout if you're in a routine of that, walk the dog, just get outside, get some fresh air and get a little walk, maybe do a quick exercise video. It's a good idea to, move your muscles and get going, and your body will probably thank you for that later. And then, of course, you can always ask to bring a side dish or a veggie tray, or maybe you're actually the one preparing the bulk of the meal. And so here's an opportunity to try to incorporate more vegetables into the meal. And we'll talk about some more specific ways of doing that. But this can be a great idea if you're not really sure what's going to be there. You want to make sure you have at least one or two things that you will feel good about eating that will kind of balance out all the other stuff. Maybe your family isn't really big on veggies and things like that. So this can be a good chance for you to prepare something really delicious and share it with them. And that might actually introduce them to a new way of preparing something that they now know that they like. So when you're actually at your holiday gathering, a good rule of thumb is water and veggies, right? So make sure you're hydrated. Try not to go in on, like I said, not an empty stomach, but also not super dehydrated. Sometimes if we're too thirsty, it can feel like hunger and it can make us want to eat more. So obviously hydration is important for lots of reasons, but it can also kind of help take the edge off any hunger. And it can help you just sort of be more moderate with your beverage choices, as we'll talk about in a minute when we talk about alcoholic beverages. So water first and veggies most. As we were saying, a plant-based diet is just so wonderfully healthy for us in so many ways. So focusing on as many veggies as you can get at the function. Try to avoid just kind of grazing on things that aren't really that important to you. If you're loving it, for sure, go for it. But if you are not really that into something that's being offered, maybe save some room. Focus on your time with your family, or enjoying the moment and not necessarily sampling everything that's coming your way if it's not something that is really appealing to you that much. And of course, try not to go too crazy with the seconds. Again, if it's your favorite and it's that time of year where it's coming around and it doesn't usually, this is the time to eat the seconds. My family does this breaded sauteed asparagus every year for Thanksgiving. It's kind of one of our traditions. And that's something that we're all having seconds of because we really love it and it comes around once a year and that's the time to have it, right? But and we'll kind of talk about this in a moment, but prioritizing what's important to you and focusing more on those foods than things that aren't really worth the calories. So here's the alcoholic drinks. As we were saying, sometimes these can have so many calories in them and they can taste great, but they can have you accidentally like already having almost a meal's worth of calories with just a couple of drinks if you're not careful, especially if it's like some of the eggnoggy kind of drinks or sort of like the creamier ones or drinks that have like a very sweet mixer. And even, of course, like liquor, beer, and wine themselves all have quite a bit of calories just alone, even without adding mixers. So it's always a good idea to just, be mindful of that, try to limit yourself to a drink or two, save some room for the main course, so to speak. Same thing when it comes to desserts. If you have that favorite thing, go for that and try to have a reasonable portion. Or if there's several like smaller options, like if you can try a little bit of everything, that's kind of my method is I don't want to miss out on anything. So I will just take like a little sliver of, a few different things or split it with somebody, and that way you're not deprived and you're not missing out. But you're also not going overboard on the portion size. And then weather permitting, maybe your family wants to go out and play football, throw the ball around, take a walk, chase the kids around, whatever you like to do. If the weather isn't too cold, but to get outside after a meal feels really good, just to kind of walk it off, let the kids run off some of that pie or whatever they ate. And that can just be very good for digestion anyway, to take a little walk after a meal. Especially if you tend to get a little reflux or some bloating, doing a little walk can definitely help get your digestive system working as it should and help you, feel great after a meal. And then what should you do after a holiday gathering? Like maybe you did a little too much, right? Like you overdid it a little bit. You might feel compelled to like maybe not eat as much the next day, which sure, you might want to find some balance of eating a little lighter. But for the most part, you want to try to just get back on your normal routine. Eat your balanced meals, focus on veggies and whole grains and lean proteins, drink plenty of water. Again, like we said, sometimes that vacillating between overdoing it and under eating can lead to this negative effect of kind of bouncing back and forth between those. So if you get too hungry, often your body will just rebel and say, I need more than that. And you'll find yourself, maybe eating, maybe overeating, maybe binge eating, more than you intended to. So again, just sort of focusing back on those normal and balanced meals can be helpful just to sort of get you back on track. Also, of course, staying active, getting some movement, there's no need for excessive restriction, like I said, or exercise to sort of make up for the day before. But it's a good idea just to stay active to, again, help your digestion and just help you feel good. You might feel a little sluggish or tired, especially if you had one too many of those holiday cocktails the night before. So stay hydrated, eat some nutritious foods, try to get some fresh air and a little bit of exercise, and your body will thank you. So there's lots of recipe swaps that you can do, whether you're bringing a side dish or if you're making, the bulk of the holiday feast. Some pretty easy swaps that you can do that are going to help include extra veggies, maybe reduce the calories by lowering the fat or the sugar content. And a lot of times these recipe swaps are pretty simple and easy. They're still going to taste great and probably no one's even going to realize it. Or if they do, they might actually appreciate that some things are a little bit lightened up so that everybody isn't feeling excessively full after the meal. So some examples of this are, for example, with dinner and side dishes. Cauliflower is one of those just amazing things that is getting very trendy nowadays, and I love this trend. Often the nutrition trends can be ridiculous, but this is a good one. So if you haven't tried cauliflower mashed potatoes or cauliflower rice, or cauliflower pizza crust, you can do a lot of things with this wonderful vegetable. But it's something that can be pureed in food processor and blended in with your mashed potatoes. And you can even do a half potato, half cauliflower ratio, and it just kind of lightens it up. It still tastes awesome. It does add like a little bit of flavor, but cauliflower is pretty bland. It's not something that's going to like drastically change the consistency or the flavor. And it adds a ton of fiber and vitamins. It reduces the starch and the calories a lot. So, plus if you add a little gravy to it, you're probably not even going to know the difference. So you can puree cauliflower or other vegetables into side dishes. I mean, this is something you can do any time of year, but a good food processor can be a snap to just blend things into a nice puree and add them to things. And this is, if you have picky eaters, they might not even notice that the veggies are in there, but it can also really increase the flavor, especially if you're adding it to things like soups and stews and dips and sauces, it may not even be noticed. Mincing extra veggies and adding them to the stuffing or, to other side dishes. These little changes, they can kind of go a long way, all added up together. Using whole grain bread instead of the biscuits or the white bread or the crescent rolls. You can even refrigerate your gravy. You know how the fat will kind of harden at the top and you can just sort of skim it off, right? So these little changes can sort of help reduce a lot of the calories. Now, some of you may be saying, well, that's the best part and I want that. Well, that's fine. Again, we're talking about what are your priorities here. If the white bread is important to you, keep that. If you want that gravy as is, that's fine. Try to make some concessions in other places. It's all about finding that balance. For appetizers and desserts, especially with baked goods, there's so many swaps that you can make that actually taste pretty great. So like if you're baking, cakes or different baked goods, subbing applesauce or canned pumpkin instead of the oil works really well and obviously reduces the calories a lot and adds a lot of fiber and vitamins. Canned pumpkin can be used for so many things. It has a ton of vitamin A and C and fiber. It's such a wonderful food and so good for digestion. Using plain Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, this is such a great swap. You can do that in like maybe a spinach dip or different kinds of like appetizers or dips or things that call for like a sour cream or some kind of sort of creamy texture. Or if you're doing a dairy, using the low fat instead of the full fat, or using like the evaporated skim milk and egg whites instead of the cream and the whole. So some of these little swaps, don't even make that much of a difference when it comes to the taste and like texture and consistency of the dishes, but it can go a long way in just lightening it up a little bit. So, and like I've been saying, it's a good idea to just sort of prioritize your favorites. So, you know, is it grandma's mashed potatoes that you look forward to all year? Well, enjoy them and have the seconds and don't feel bad about it, right? But if there's some things that you just don't really, care that much about, the rolls just aren't even doing it for you, then skip those. But remember that all foods can be part of a healthy diet. It's really all about amounts. There's that saying that the dose makes the poison. So too much of anything can be a bad thing. So prioritize the things that are most important to you. Enjoy those, and don't worry about it. I definitely say that there shouldn't be any guilt at the holidays, really, or any time of year when it comes to food, because food is a really important part of tradition and family time and a lot of different really important moments in life are around the dinner table or surrounding different kinds of foods, birthday cakes and different, foods that are kind of linked to, special times with your family and friends. So there shouldn't be any guilt associated with that. This is just an important time that should be enjoyed. So enjoy the moment, taste your food, slow down and savor it is something I always say, but especially at the holidays, take a moment, set down your fork, look around the table, appreciate your people that are around you. Um, and also slowing down not only helps you kind of savor and enjoy your food, taste it more, be more mindful about what you're eating, but it can help you feel your fullness coming on. So sometimes if we're eating a little too fast, it's so good, you just want to kind of wolf it down, but then you can accidentally, kind of go past that point of comfortableness when we do that. So slowing down can help you feel your fullness and, help you remember that the leftovers will be there later if you want them, which is often one of the best parts of the holidays is enjoying the leftovers later. So definitely enjoy. And remember, holidays are times for friends and family and fun, and just be sure to enjoy the season, even if it means you're indulging occasionally. Um, if you have any questions, please let me know. Here's my contact info if anyone has questions later, if you want to get in touch. Um, Working with a registered dietitian can be really helpful if you have questions and need more of like an individualized plan. So feel free to get in touch. But anyone have any questions or concerns or anything that they would like to? Good.
Thank you so much, Kristin. What I love about that talk just now is that so many times when you're at a holiday meal, you're just kind of obsessed with feeling guilty and just, oh, forget it. But this gives you what you talked about here, gives you another way to look at it. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to feel guilty. You're just kind of looking for little ways that you can make a difference and just improve just a little bit. And those little things add up to make a big difference, I think. So thank you very much. Really good
Yes.
advice.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.